Well, Oklahoma Secretary of Commerce Larry Parman is stepping down at the end of the year. During his tenure, Parman helped bring thousands of jobs into the state from internationally known companies like Boeing and Macy's. Earlier, I was able to sit down with the Secretary to talk about our economy and why he believes it has a lot in common with Batman. Well, Mr. Secretary, I've heard you describe Oklahoma in terms of superheroes as the Batman of superheroes. Please explain.
Well, I came across this idea by reading a marketing letter produced by a good friend of mine, and he was talking about superheroes, and he was talking about one in particular in the context of a marketing story. And the superhero he was talking about was Batman. And he made the point that Batman was a superhero, the only one who had no superpowers. Superman had superpowers, Captain Marvel had superpowers, all of them had superpowers except Batman. Batman became super by choice. Yet when Batman tackled villains and enemies and tried to rid Gotham of crime, he took on villains that actually possessed superpowers. None of those others did. So he was extraordinary in that way, and I think all of us have been entertained by, interested in Batman and that story and so forth, but we've never really been led by or informed by that principle, and the principle is one of choice. He made a decision after watching his parents killed to rid Gotham of crime. And likewise, Oklahoma battles superpower states all the time in the economic development arena. So we have states that have oceans, beaches, beachfront property, Rocky Mountains, Great Lakes, so on and so forth. And it's hard to compete against them. It's hard to compete against states that have multi-million-dollar advertising budgets for television, radio, internet, magazine, newspaper, and so forth. It's hard to compete against states that have hundreds of millions of dollars in the closing fund. So Oklahoma is not a super state. We have no superpowers. We have to create competitive advantage through policies, practices, and programs. And so that's what our focus has been.
So give me some examples of where we do increase our strengths. You said policies and programs?
For example, on the policy side, and let me start with what does not seem to be working. There are many states out there that view business as the enemy. They view business as the ability to tax that business's income as the solution for their unwillingness or inability to have good policies in place. So the high tax states tend to look at that evil 1%, you know, that employee, that successful business, as the source to remedy and correct all the policy problems or mistakes that they have. Oklahoma, by contrast, has tried to create a series of policies that help those businesses grow and thrive. It started in 2001 with right to work, 2009 with tort reform, lawsuit reform, last year with workers' compensation reform. We continue to work on the income tax issue and keep those rates competitive, improving our education system and tackling the pension problem. You know, if you don't tackle the pension problem, that will eventually cause a state to go bankrupt.
And in particular, the state pension problem and the lower ratings we may have due to the state pension problem.
The unfunded liabilities and getting that fixed. So those are six legs to an economic development stool that I think, that I know, Oklahoma has a strong message to tell.
Let's talk about workforce. What role does that play in trying to attract industry or grow industry here in the state?
Every state has workforce problems. It seems to have gone to the top of the list over the past number of years, and I think the reason for that is because the business community has changed much quicker. Productivity, technology has moved the business community's platform of operation much off dead center. The education community is not quite caught up. And by not being caught up, I mean businesses tell us that workforce preparation capability is not where it needs to be. In Oklahoma, I'm not so sure we do have a capability problem because everyone does. To deny it would not be fair. But we also have a workforce availability problem. I mean, our unemployment rate's so low, we're doing so well that it creates a constraint of a different kind. So we just want to be sure that we're creating not only workforce capability, but we also want to be sure we're creating the policies that attract more people to come to the state. But it's at the top of the list. Well, it starts with awareness. And I have to applaud Governor Mary Fallin because in her 1 year as chairman of the National Governors Association, she elevated that issue for all states to think about through her initiative called America Works. And America Works talks about preparing and aligning workforce capability and needs. And so that's part of that initiative. We're going to carry that further back. We're going to bring that back home in a program called Oklahoma Works. And so the question I think for us will be, how do we strike that balance between putting resources? Do we need more resources in higher ed? Do we need more resources right now in career tech? Where do we need the resources? How are we going to make those allocations? We'll leave that debate up to the elected officials, but we seem to have a need to get more people beyond high school. Not everyone needs a four-year degree, nor desires a four-year degree. We want to be sure that we do not lose those people who choose not to pursue a four-year degree. We don't want them underemployed. If we can get them a certificate, get them to an associate's degree, get them through career tech, and give them capability to go out into the marketplace and immediately pick up a $50,000 to $80,000 a year job. We have to help those people.
In many ways, you are our state's chief salesperson around the country. I
think the governor's the chief salesperson.
Well,
I just try to help her.
Okay, I will definitely accept that answer. When you're out with the governor promoting the state to C-level executives, to decision makers, what are some of the obstacles that you face?
Well, it depends. Every deal is different. Every deal seems to have its own DNA. It's hard for me to understand exactly what goes on behind the curtain in those companies in terms of what they're really looking at. Site selectors are very coy about not being, they're not that forthcoming in terms of telling you what the magic formula might be. But you have to answer a number of questions. I mean, for some deals, the transportation distance is important. Google was attracted to our state because we had the trifecta. We had available sites, we had water availability, and we had cheap energy. So a lot of states could not provide that, even though they tried. So every deal is a little bit different. And what I'm finding is that companies are very well informed about what the capabilities and opportunities are within each of these states. What I'm trying to get them to think about more is the policies that we have in place. And I'm challenging people a little bit, and I'm willing to have the discussion by saying, are you kidding me? You really want to be the victim of a high tax state? And you really want, I mean, what are your chances for success? And how's that going to impact your bottom line profitability if you locate in a state that cannot correct its problems and they look to you to provide the solution? To me, that doesn't make sense. So I just want to be sure that companies don't make a 50-year mistake by not looking at Oklahoma because they don't have the information about Oklahoma. That gets back to the awareness issue that we've talked about before. Have to make them aware of what we have.
Well, no one, including the state of Oklahoma, can be all things to all people, but we do have certain strengths here in the state that are referred to by the Department of Commerce as ecosystems. We also hear them called clusters. What are those?
I think that's a very important concept. I mean, you can't be everything to everyone. We're pretty clear about our strengths and what we do well. So the 5 are, first of all, energy, aerospace, 3rd, bioscience and agriculture, 4th, transportation and distribution, and then finally, financial services and information. In those ecosystems, we compete very well. In my view, every company that falls within one of those ecosystems should be in our state. I mean, we just have the right combination of people, energy, land, capabilities to do very well in those systems. So those are the ones that we promote first. And I want to be clear that if you're a company that's not necessarily in one of those ecosystems, it's not that we don't invite you, it's not that we don't welcome you, it's not that we're not going to do everything that we can to help you grow, but we know what we do well. And those 5 ecosystems fit the bill for us.
If you were given the magic wand at the Department of Commerce, what would be the first thing that you would like to be able to do for the state?
I don't like to be put in a position where I have to constantly be asking for money. I may be a little bit different as an agency director in that respect because I believe that we should minimize the presence of government in our economy and not maximize it. So I'm not inclined to be asking for more and more money, but I do know that if we had a budget where we could market the state more aggressively and change our branding and deliver our message more effectively, it would help move the needle. It would put us on a different level. All these states that have these big budgets, you and I both know, television is still the most powerful way to deliver a message. If we could compete in that arena, it would be fabulous. And I'm hoping that the legislature will agree with that and give us some money and afford us that opportunity.
Well, we certainly will look forward to what the legislature does. Secretary Parman, thank you so much.
Thanks. Good to be here, Rob.